What's up, everyone? Welcome to Hollywood Unveiled, where we pull back the curtain on the Hollywood entertainment industry and get to know the people and stories behind the magic. I'm Jake.
And I'm Logan.
And Logan, I hear we better beware.
This is very true, because today the movie we are pulling back the curtain on is the Frank Oz 1986 classic Little Shop of Horrors.
Absolute favorite of mine.
Oh God, I love this movie. It's so fun. So if you haven't seen Little Shop, it is about a nerdy florist who finds his chance for success and romance with the help of a giant man-eating plant who demands to be fed. I got a tiny version right here.
He's well keyed. Oh, no,
yes.
No, he's better. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
There we go. A little bit against me there. But he's got a little coffee pot. He's nice.
Love it.
Yes, so this movie stars Rick Moranis as Seymour Krelborn, Ellen Greene as Audrey, Vincent Gardenia as Mr. Mushnick, Steve Martin as Orvin Scrivello, DDS, and Levi Stubbs as the voice of Audrey 2. It's wild. I love that it is this unabashed musical, that it's dark, it's not afraid to be kind of morbid and dour, but it's just the performances are really solid, and it kind of and for me that's why it kind of sticks around, because everyone's just giving their all.
And if you're a theater kid like us, you've participated in some form of production of this show in high school. And you've committed all the songs to memory, and you wish beyond all things that you could have been Seymour. And that, I might just be telling on myself, but it had a huge impact on me in high school, in my theater. I mean, it didn't come out when I was in high school, but, and I absolutely tortured my dad with singing the song about the dentist and how he loves to hurt people throughout the house. And my dad is a dentist. So I'm sure he loved that, me singing about, how that I love to hurt little puppies as a dentist. Yeah. And he's like, we don't do that. That's not what we do. That's
not all of us.
It's not any of them.
well,
hopefully none of them.
We can't categorically prove that, Jake.
True.
First, I kind of wanted to dive into its history, because this isn't one of those movies that just kind of sprouted up as a musical out of nowhere. It actually started with a 1960 movie that was made on a bet. So Roger Corman, if you haven't ever heard of the man, is kind of like the dude when it comes to low budget B movies. I don't mean that in a positive way. He always has super low budgets, but he always throws whatever he has at the screen and does his best to make them entertaining at the very least.
I don't think there's anybody in our group of friends that considers the term B movie an insult. So,
yes. So someone bet Corman that he couldn't make a movie in a week. And he was like, bet.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. So they found this script, which was originally titled Passionate People Eater. So they were like, okay, cool. Here's this script. We're going to put this thing together. They took Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to rehearse while the set was being built. Because it was very almost self-contained in the flower shop. Mm-hmm. You see one or two scenes outside of it, but other than that, very contained to the shop. And then they filmed Thursday, Friday.
And look, who among us hasn't participated in one of those 48-hour film festivals anyway? So
exactly,
but he just made a feature.
He did, and that movie kind of would have been lost to history, with the exception of a very fun bit of casting, which I'll circle back to here in a moment. It could have potentially just kind of wallowed in obscurity until a stage musical was made out of this movie, because of course, while they were making it, they also realized, Passionate People Eater, not a great title. It is a great title, Little Shop of Horrors. So it changed to that, and then eventually got made into this stage musical. The fun bit of casting in the original. Do you know which Oscar winner is in the original Corman classic?
The one answer I'm going to get right, Jack Nicholson.
You are correct, Jack Nicholson. So if you've seen the version we're talking about, Nicholson, he plays the Bill Murray part. So he's just the dude in the dentist office who's kind of a masochist. That is the extent of his thing in there. But there is a cool way that tie this back to Nicholson in a little bit, which I think is fun. Someone has seen the musical and went, this should be a movie. And they bring it to Frank Oz. Now, Frank Oz is currently in post-production on Muppets Take Manhattan. And he's like, I don't have the time to do this. I can't do it. So he turns it down, but they bring it around to him a second time. Scheduling has worked out a little bit better. It's now like 2 years later because he's working on Muppets Take Manhattan in like, 83. They get to, this comes out in 86. So, timing works out a little bit better. What I think is really cool with Frank Oz coming on to this is he brings a lot of really interesting sensibilities coming from a Muppet movie, from Muppets Take Manhattan and Dark Crystal. Working with puppetry and creatures like that really is why I think what makes this movie as special as it is, even down to like filming techniques, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. Mm-hmm. As we kind of do with these peel back the curtains, one of the things I like to talk about is the alternate casting, right? Like who almost could have come into this movie. Mm-hmm. The one person who I have seen no real alternate casting for is Seymour. It seems like from the get that was Rick Moranis.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He's like the only person you want to play that part.
Yes.
And he just came off of playing Louis Tully.
Yes. He is very good at that nerdy small guy and has some pipes on him. Like he belts out so many of these great
it's a good thing
tunes.
He could sing, right?
Yes. So it seemed like they wanted him from the get. Audrey, they had a couple different options. There was a rumor at one point that they put out an offer to Barbra Streisand. And she was
I didn't hear that one. That's a good one.
Yeah. After that, they were like, all right, well, like for Audrey, a pop star. Let's go for a pop star kind of thing. So they went for Cyndi Lauper and Madonna, which would have been two wildly different portrayals.
Yeah, very different movies.
Yeah, like I honestly like hearing Madonna, I can't help but think that Audrey would have then been played like her character Breathless in Dick Tracy. And I think Ellen Greene brings this real kind of sympathy to the character. And apparently it was actually her idea to have Audrey be like the bleach blonde that she was. Because that's not necessarily on the page, but she was like, if this girl wants the fancy that, like, that's totally a character detail that she would want to have for herself.
And it's really super fitting that she was cast because she had been playing Audrey on Broadway.
Yes, and studios have always kind of had this worry of like, they played the part on stage, but will that translate to a movie?
Yeah, I think we see a lot in this industry. You and I both know. But have they done features? But have they? Yes. There seems to be this bias of whether it's talent, whether it's crew. If you haven't already done a feature, we don't want to put you in a feature.
Yes,
it's a weird one, right?
Like I'm fairly certain that was the whole thing with My Fair Lady. Like, I'm pretty sure for that one, like tangent, Julie Andrews like had been playing that part on Broadway. And Jack Warner, when it came to WB, was like, I don't think she has the star power to do this. So they cast Audrey Hepburn. Mm-hmm. And then Julie Andrews went on to do Mary Poppins, won an Oscar. And in her acceptance speech, she said, I got to thank the man who made this possible, Jack Warner, for not casting me in that. Thank you for that.
Today, it's not the star power. It's do they have the followers on social media?
So let's see. So some of the other alternate casting, Mr. Mushnick.
Yes.
They wanted John Candy. Scheduling just didn't work out. So they went with Gardenia, and he always kind of jokes like they cast me because they like my last name because Garden is in there. It's like, all right, that's funny.
They still managed to get John Candy in the movie.
And he's in there and he's got a great little cameo in it, and it works really well with him playing off of Rick Moranis. One of the producers, Geffen, I think was his name. He was weirdly adamant about Rodney Dangerfield being in this movie.
Well, it's Rodney, so
yeah. But like, there's a story that at one point, like they had Rodney record dialogue for Audrey too.
Oh,
that like never ended up getting used. At one point, like he apparently was on the call sheet as playing. I don't remember the character's name, but the guy who Jim Belushi ends up playing in the final version, like the traveling salesman.
Right? Yeah, the salesman.
And Belushi was also like a secondary casting because the first guy they had, they couldn't get him back for reshoots. But apparently on that day, like Dangerfield was on there on the cast list as that guy, and Frank Oz was like, no, like Belushi was number 2 on the call sheet. Also, it's like, no, like Belushi's like we've cast him. You can't just like force Dangerfield to show up and be in this movie. The other one that I think is really interesting with like big name star power to it, though, was the alternate voice for Audrey too.
Oh, I don't know this one. Hit me with it.
Eddie Murphy.
Oh, okay.
Which, like, all right, yeah, like you're thinking of this like super witty, charismatic talking plant. Okay.
He makes a great, super witty talking donkey, so it could really work.
Sure. You toss some, people eating on top of that, and hey, you've got the hit of the century. So also when it comes to casting, I do like this. So there's also a few little cameos when it comes to casting in the movie. So did you know that both of Jim Henson's kids are in this movie?
I know Brian Henson was at least a operator of Audrey 2.
Yes, that is how he is in the movie. He was one of the main puppeteers for Audrey 2. Jim Henson's daughter is the girl in the dentist's office with the headgear who's trying to describe what's happened to her. And he's like, yeah, with that whole Bill Murray scene.
Yeah.
So that was her little cameo in there. Well, speaking of dentist, some people assume this was like an intentional bit of casting of getting like this, we're going to have a big name there in the middle with Bill Murray. Right. Apparently, that was another thing. Producer David Geffen, he really wanted Bill Murray. So he had Frank Oz reach out to Bill Murray. And apparently the conversation went, Oz was like, so Billy, you want to do this thing? And Murray's response was, well, yeah, but do I have to say the lines? Because I think everyone knows when it comes to Bill Murray, big improviser.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
So I think that's the way of saying, like, am I locked into what's written here? And Oz's response was, look, as long as you're a masochist and Steve's the sadist, I don't care.
And he nailed it. So
Murray apparently riffed every line of his dialogue. So Martin stuck to what was in the script for the most part, with the exception of like reactions and certain things. But Murray improv'd every single line that he had there. And it kind of brings this like weird energy to it.
It absolutely makes sense because Steve Martin's character just does stuff around him and just keeps doing what he would do anyway.
Yes. And it's all seeing how he reacts to it. So as they were going into development for this new film, the budget was clearly a little bit higher. The original Corman film was shot on a budget of $30,000. And so for this, budget's $30 million.
There you go. Yeah.
Which, like, all right, cool. Now for Audrey, they had to do a lot of really fascinating filming techniques. And this is where I think Frank Oz brought a lot of his puppetry experience to it. So they built 6 different Audreys to kind of be the character throughout the entire movie. The smallest was 4 inches. I'm guessing that was this little version.
The little guy,
in the coffee can. I'm guessing that is this was the smallest. The biggest was 12 feet tall. And
the one behind you.
The one behind me here. So for this big 12-footer, it had 60 operators. 60. That's a lot of people working this thing. But here's where it gets really impressive. So you watch the movie and the lip movement on Audrey is so fluid.
It is the most articulated puppet I've ever seen.
And it is so well synced to the voice. What makes that really impressive is all of the scenes with Audrey talking, especially at that full size, are shot at a different frame rate. So standard film, obviously shot at 24 frames per second, unless you're The Hobbit and Peter Jackson and you're shot at 60. But the scenes with Audrey were shot at about 12 to 16 frames per second and then played back at 24. So if you watch those scenes, especially like if Seymour is moving through the scene, Rick Moranis is performing the scene in slow motion.
And he nails every bit of the lip sync, every bit of the physical movement. So he doesn't even seem like he's being shot at that frame rate. It's incredible.
No, it's brilliant. Until someone points it out, you would never notice. And even when someone does, you have to really be paying attention to go, oh, there it is. Like there's so many little things like, and it's literally like, if you look close at him walking across the room, you can see him wavering on each step because he's having to like step and pause for a beat in between steps just to match. But like Rick Moranis deserves all of the praise in the world, just in general.
Well, in life, really, if you know his story.
Dude is like an amazing person in general. So I think that's that is just a true testament to the talent that he kind of brought to this picture.
Well, what's incredible about that, the reason to have to shoot it at that frame rate, for anything to move at that speed and that articulation it's physically impossible. In the production that we did back when I was a sophomore in high school, our giant Audrey 2 was this gigantic like lever, like it just did this and this, and it took like 3 of us just to open its mouth and close it. And so every other word, it would have been like, they're singing all the lyrics, but it's just moving like this as fast as we can, and everybody inside there sweating their asses off trying to make it move.
To flap that thing as fast as humanly possible.
Yeah,
and it gets even more impressive when you realize that they didn't use green or blue screen at all in the movie. So most of the tricks are like in camera trickery, especially when it comes to like Audrey of any kind moving and kind of doing their thing. So I think that is just wildly impressive.
I'm not sure what techniques go into we're going to get into it later, the alternate ending, but that might be a different story on some cases. But absolutely, when it comes to just the straight performances with Audrey 2 in the plant shop, absolutely.
Yes. Now, this movie also has a couple of weird crossovers. One is fairly obvious, and we'll start with that, is Little Mermaid. So Alan Menken wrote music for Little Shop, and Little Shop features something that is in most good musicals, which is what is referred to as an I want song. It's them basically saying, hey, this is what I want out of my life, out of this. It's Somewhere Over the Rainbow from Wizard of Oz. It's Belle from Beauty and the Beast. It's Part of Your World from Little Mermaid. So for this, it was Somewhere That's Green, right? That's Audrey being like, that's what I want. I want that beautiful place, that Somewhere That's Green. And Menken took that kind of aesthetic and that kind of vibe into working on Little Mermaid. So when they were working on Part of Your World, they kept referring to it as Somewhere That's Wet. Because they were just like, all right, like that's kind of the vibe that we have that kind of crosses over with this. Let's kind of weave that together.
And it's almost like he was cutting his teeth on Little Shop of Horrors before getting into Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin afterwards. Yes. So it's a really cool connection all the way back to A Man-Eating Plant.
Yes. Random side question. Favorite Alan Menken?
I mean, I guess it's technically Little Shop of Horrors right now, at least.
That's fair. I'm a sucker for Gallivant, though, that musical show he did with.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh, no. It's so fun. It's a medieval musical, and it's delightful. All right, so the second crossover with Little Shop is '89 Batman.
All right.
So a lot of Steve Martin's dentistry equipment as props were reused in the scene in '89 Batman, where the surgeon is showing like how he fixed Jack Nicholson's face. You see what I have to work with here.
Oh, okay.
So hilariously, those same props that were in this Little Shop brought back to Jack Nicholson in '89.
Was in the original Little Shop.
Yeah, a weird kind of roundabout kind of thing. This next crossover, though, is wild. So apparently, while they were shooting this, so they shot this whole thing in a soundstage, and the soundstage next door was a little production, little indie movie, probably never. Aliens.
Oh.
Yeah, the James Cameron.
Never heard of it.
No, this little nothing movie.
I hope that director's doing well.
Me too. So Aliens had the stage next door. One of the original casting for Corporal Hicks in Aliens was James Remar. We'll get into it in that episode, but like he was, recast at some point. But while he was working on it, they were doing a rehearsal in the stage, and he was kind of shooting off one of the fake guns, not realizing that it was loaded with blanks. So the burst of that, I think he was like right next to a wall. It actually tore through a wall between the two sound stages.
Oh no!
No one was hurt. There was obviously, but there was a hole between the Alien soundstage and the Little Shop soundstage for like a couple days in there while they were filming. Goodness. Which I think is kind of hilarious. So luckily nobody was hurt when that. When that kind of blank blasted a hole in the wall.
Oh my God, yeah. Hey, if you're liking what you're seeing here, you should like, comment, and subscribe. You can check out all our episodes. And hey, Logan, are you missing a finger?
Damn it. So filming of the movie goes pretty well. Like I haven't really heard a lot of negative stories about filming. Like even with all of the like hurdles they were jumping through, no one was like, man, it sucked. Like everyone was like, yeah, Little Shop's going great. So they're doing test audience screenings, and test audience screenings back in the 80s. I say this like I have personal experience. I had not taken corporeal form when this movie was released.
You were not when this movie was released. No,
yeah, didn't exist yet. But like the way they used to do test audiences is that you would have a dial on like the arm of your seat, and as you were enjoying it throughout the movie, you would adjust the dial. So if you're like, oh, I'm liking this scene, I'm cranking it up. Oh, I don't like the scene, I'm going to crank it down. So they could have a tally of like how you're feeling about it, kind of as the movie's going. So this movie in the test screenings had some of the highest test like screening ratings. The people were loving it. Like it was consistently like, oh, this movie's building. And then the last 10 minutes slam into the ground. And everyone's like, we hate the ending. We love it up to that point. Clearly it's getting fantastic ratings, but like the ending, no.
And if I'm correct, the ending is accurate to the Broadway ending.
Yes.
Yeah.
The original Broadway ending, for those who don't know, is there is a song called Don't Feed the Plants. And it shows that Seymour fails to save Audrey.
If I may, she's been mortally wounded at this point.
She's mortally wounded.
Basically killed. And
Audrey too is like, well, like, come on, you're gonna let that meat go to waste? Like, you might as well let me kind of chow down a little bit. Pretty much. Seymour is so emotionally distraught that he's just like, yeah, cool, fine. Like he is just so out of it. And I believe shortly thereafter, he also allows himself to be eaten by Audrey too.
Yep.
And at the end of the movie, like Seymour has this thing where like, you're planning to take over the world. You're gonna do this. That's the actual end of the Broadway musical. Is like the plants succeed in taking over the earth.
Oh, yeah. And in the many productions, I know in our production, the plant eats the theater. So like the vines drop down and, you know, it's a whole thing. So
yeah. So like in this original ending, you see like plants like rampaging through a city like King Kong or Godzilla. You see a plant on the top of the Statue of Liberty. And then the last shot is a plant bursting through the screen kind of at the audience, kind of doing its thing. And it's like, okay, cute. That's like, that's very cool. That's a way to work it into the musical. That's great. Test audiences were bummed the fuck out.
I have a side note that you just reminded me about, actually. Prior to Frank Oz actually directing, Steven Spielberg was signed on to possibly produce this movie, at least. I don't know if he was signed up to direct it or not, but at the time when he was going to do it, they were going to shoot it in 3D. And they realized
a really fun ending.
that would have made that ending. That's what it reminded me, that if he's punching through the screen in 3D, that would have been interesting. But they also realized at the time that it didn't seem to work out too well for Jaws 3D, so they didn't go that route. And
if you're going to look at one movie to go, maybe we don't do that, that's a good one. That's a good one to avoid. Yeah. So one of the quotes from Frank Oz, when they were talking about, you know, why the ending had to change, he was like, you know, when you see a Broadway show and you see your main characters die, you feel sad, but they come back out for bows.
Yes.
So you get this kind of reminder of like, oh, right, they're not really dead. But in a movie, you don't have that. Like there is no final bow. So when those characters die, they're dead. It is depressing for the audience, but then they have that cathartic release when that actor can then come back out on stage and take their bow. Whereas like you watch a movie and it ends as a bummer and you're like, cool, now I just feel dead inside. They had to change the ending. So that's why they kind of developed like, okay, well, what if Seymour succeeds? What if Seymour is able to save Audrey, take out Audrey too, and get there somewhere that's green? And we'll still kind of hint at that ending with seeing one of these cute little dudes kind of sitting in their garden out front. Like, you know, so it still kind of gets the same vibe and it still has this kind of fun attitude to it.
And if you haven't seen the original ending, I highly recommend anybody out there go to YouTube. If I can find it, I'll link it to it in the description below. It is an incredible production, and we talked about the budget being around 30 million. That ending alone that got cut took up 1/5 of their budget.
Yeah.
Wild, right?
Only to then cut it. Well, actually, on a random note, I think this is fascinating. So with this movie being the big success that it is, I'm sure it's not a surprise to hear that there have been talks of remakes.
I'm sure,
right?
Yeah.
I know at one point, Joseph Gordon-Levitt really wanted to do a remake of this, directing and starring as Seymour.
I could see that. That'd be interesting.
You know, I remember his monologue on SNL where he did make him laugh.
He's a song and dance kid at heart, you know. So
exactly.
I know that.
So I can see that totally working.
Mm-hmm.
The most recent version that I have heard that was in talks was going to have Taron Egerton as Seymour,
mm-hmm.
Scarlett Johansson as Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
But the one other casting that I think is really fun is as Orvin Scrivella, DDS.
Okay.
Chris Evans.
That guy's got range. He could do it. That'd be
especially
great.
Post Captain America. I love that Chris Evans is in his professional asshole era.
Yes, yeah, I love that.
Whether it's Knives Out, it's The Gray Man, he's playing more villains. Yeah. And I really kind of dig that. I think that's a really fun kind of thing for him. I saw a community college production of it. Way too young to follow any of the plot, really.
Sure, yeah.
Then saw the movie later. Felt gaslit after that because I remembered the ending from the stage show, but the movie had the new ending, and I was like, I remember the plants kill everybody. What is this?
The correct ending.
Yeah, like I had the Mandela effect of like, wait, hold I know this ending. What is going on? And then years later, bought it on DVD, and it turns out I bought the director's cut, which has the original Broadway ending.
And thank God that they actually restored the footage, because I think all the footage that I've seen of that original cut was all in black and white. It was degraded. So the fact that they had the original negatives that they could restore and turn into give us this high quality ending, I'm so appreciative of. So fun fact, did you know that Audrey 2 is part of the DC universe?
You know what? This felt like a Poison Ivy thing. All right. Yeah, go on.
It really should be if you think about it. I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, I think Audrey 2 really did cross over into Harley Quinn on HBO Max, right?
You know, there's definitely some similarities.
That might be there.
Yeah.
Well, I say this because after the movie came out, there was a comic adaptation that came out by Michael Fleischer that was published by DC Comics. The artwork is really interesting because as far as the character designs, Audrey 2 looks like this weird mutated plant. Doesn't look nothing like Audrey 2 in the movie or Broadway or anything like that. It's like this blob of plant.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you mean. Yeah, like it's definitely much more of a giant snake plant, almost kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a weird one, but basically Audrey 2 is in the DC universe. So like you said, should be friends with Poison Ivy. They're probably roommates.
They probably are. That is very surprising. You know what else is surprising? Game time, you son of a bitch. That's right. It's time for your favorite little game inside of a podcast. That's right. It is game time. The game within a podcast where we ask Jake questions about the movie that we have been talking about in the form.
I historically get them wrong.
You say historically. We've done this one time prior.
Historically.
So once again, I have 3 questions. There might be some deeper subset questions in a couple of these, but you got a couple questions in here.
All right. Now, again, I have to warn you, I was a part of the high school production back in Hawaii, my sophomore year at high school, James B. Castle High School, known for its theater program. So I'm probably still going to get it all wrong.
That was about to say, I was like, great. Sounds good. Theater has nothing really to do with this. So first question, we're talking about adaptations, right?
Yeah.
So there's a comic book. So your first question, there was also an animated series spin-off for this movie. It was simply called Little Shop.
Yes.
Your first question.
Okay.
How many episodes did Little Shop run?
1 season.
How many episodes?
I can't give you the episodes. Wait.
The question was how many episodes?
How many are in a season? I'm going to guess. I'm going to say 13.
13 is 100% correct.
All right.
Yes.
Cool.
The animated series starred a young Seymour and Junior, his rapping prehistoric fly trap, which is wild.
It's a very loose adaptation. I vaguely remember seeing it when I was a kid. I know I have seen it, and I know that it was not, say, accurate to the movie.
No, definitely not great. But let's be real. Like, I'm a fan of a lot of like cartoon tie-ins with movies.
Oh, sure.
They are rarely good.
Oh, yeah. And they're rarely accurate to the movie, and
100%. All right. So, hey, for someone who says they are,
I got one.
Historically, yeah, you're 1 for 1.
Good
there
night.
You go.
Show's over. It's been great having you here.
See ya.
One day we'll figure out how to end this show, but until then.
All right. So question number 2. This movie also had a tie-in board game. I'm going to give you 4 options.
Okay.
What was the name of that board game? Was it Little Shop, the game, Audrey 2, Feed Me, or Mean Green Mouth?
Ooh. Because they all sound about right.
Yeah, they all sound about on par for.
I feel like it's Mean Green Mouth because I feel like it might be that.
Oh, sorry. It is not Mean Green Mouth. It is Feed Me. So I saw some images of this game. The closest thing I can equate it to, did you ever play Crocodile Dentist? So for those who don't know, it's a plastic mouth with teeth. And in Crocodile Dentist, you push the teeth, you push a wrong tooth, it snaps shut. Oh, I lost. The gator got me. So this game was kind of a variation of that. You had the Audrey. Mm-hmm. You had the Audrey, and her mouth was open. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but the mouth was open, and you had like marbles or something, and you would hit a spinner, and however many marbles you got, you would toss into the mouth, and if the mouth closed, you got eaten by the mouth.
I'm vaguely remembering this now too. Yeah, Mean Green Mouth. It's a good one you came up with there.
Mean Green Mouth is the one I was like, there's no way he'll think it's this one.
No, because that is a title. That is a game name. That is so in theme with the games that were coming out in the 80s and 90s. So like Hungry Hippos, Mean Green Mouth. It sounds like it belongs there, It
does.
It could. Bravo to you, sir. That was
thank you.
Now go make that game.
I'll get right on it. Okay, so this last question, you're 50. You got a 50% at this point. So you got to get this to succeed. So this one, it has multiple parts.
Okay. Parts. Okay.
Yes. So, Little Shop, huge success, not only on a financial, but a technical level. Mm-hmm. So much so that it set a first at the Academy Awards. It was also nominated for 2 Oscars.
Okay.
So the first part of your question, what was the first that it set? And what were the 2 categories it was nominated in?
Was it the first film with a giant puppet to be nominated?
No.
Okay.
I believe because one of the Muppet movies was nominated for best.
True. There you go.
For one of the categories a couple years prior.
Okay. Well, I got that one wrong already. So.
Well, just that again, like it's a 2-part question. So you might not know the first, but
but what are the categories that it was
nominated in? Yeah.
Adapted screenplay
was not nominated in adapted screenplay.
I don't see why it would be either. Why would I say that?
I mean,
it was a great script, but I mean, it was adapted screenplay. Visual effects.
Judges.
Special
visual
effects.
Visual effects. All right. Is one of the 2 categories. That is correct.
That would have been my answer for one of the 2. Because visual effects, but I just wanted to.
So that puts you for points at the moment at a 2 out of 5.
All right.
The other category that it was nominated in, was Best Original Song.
Oh, okay.
The first that it set was the first R-rated Oscar song. Because the song that was nominated, R-rated? Mean Green Mother.
Wait, this movie was rated R?
No, but like as an R-rated song, like the implication is he's like, he says like, up yours, like Mean Green Mother. Clearly the implication is like a mean green motherfucker from outer space. Like, so there's a lot of stuff like that. So it's like, so it is categorized as like the first R-rated Oscar song.
They actually categorized it as R-rated.
Well, at least
song.
People refer to it now as an R-rated Oscar song.
I wouldn't have caught that one. No, especially since the film itself wasn't R-rated.
Yeah. And that's why like it was, no one threw that big of a fit when like Blame Canada got nominated years later. So they're like, okay, yeah, like the Oscars have done, a hard song before.
But so that song was nominated.
The song was nominated for Best Original Song. Yes.
Wow.
Here is the second part to the question.
Mm-hmm.
Little Shop, unfortunately, lost both of those Oscar categories.
Okay.
Your second part to the question. What are the movies that beat it in each of those categories?
What movies came out in 1986?
So, well, I can't tell you.
No, I have to think.
So it's for Best Original Song and Best Visual Effects.
I don't even know what movies came out in 1986. That's a thing.
You know what? I'll give you a hint
alive,
to one of them.
But I was 2, maybe 3.
I'll give you a hint to one of them. We've talked about it on this very episode.
Roger Rabbit?
No.
On this episode, you said.
Yes, I gave you a shot. You took it. No, okay.
Go ahead.
So, unfortunately, with a 2 out of 7 points, unfortunately, you have lost this particular game time. But
historically,
no, this is your first loss. You won the first one. You are 50-50 at the. Don't give me that look. Don't look at me in that tone of voice, Jake. Don't do it. Okay, so don't do it. Okay, so what beat this film in its various categories? For visual effects,
mm-hmm.
Aliens.
They were. Yes. I mean, they were filming next door.
Yes, but they both released in '86.
Okay.
Aliens, like the Academy thought the visual effects for the Xenomorph Queen
mm-hmm.
and all of that stuff was more impressive than Audrey, mm-hmm. which, like, you know what? I'm a fan of Alien. Mm-hmm. All right, I can give him that. Best original song. So what beat Me and Green Mother for best original song?
Aliens.
That'd be wild. No, Take My Breath Away from Top Gun.
Okay. Yep.
That was what beat it out, which, like, if you're asking me, I prefer Me and Green Mother.
Me too.
Over Take My Breath Away.
Oh,
but, all right, fine.
Yeah. Well, Logan, as with the last episode, with that depressing note, where can the people find you, Logan?
I'm findable. You can find me on Twitter as at FilmGuy89. You can find me on Instagram at FilmGuy1989. You can find me on YouTube with Quarantine Theater Company. Actually, I have done a reading of Little Shop, which we will link to down below.
You sure will.
Where we had a ton of fun with it. I got to play Audrey too.
Feed me.
Does it have to be human?
Feed me.
Does it have to be mine?
Feed me.
Where am I supposed to get it?
Did it as a puppet, and it was a blast.
Yeah, Levi Stubbs, same voice.
Hey, you know what? I tried to live up to it and hit cues. That was the extent of my trying. But yeah, so I'm findable on those. How about you? Where can people find you?
Oh, you can find me around too. You can find me and my company at VFX2Go on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. One of these days I'll post to Threads, but it is what it is. And you can find us on our website, vfx2go.com. Hey, Logan, did you know we have a .com?
Didn't you just say it? Isn't it just vfx2go.com?
No, Hollywood Unveiled.
Of
That's
course.
right. We have a website, hollywoodunveiled.com. You can find all our episodes, or just, go to subscribe to us now. That'd be great too. You can subscribe to us and you can check all our episodes out. And you can find us on the socials at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and eventually we'll post to some of them. But one of these days, Logan, we'll figure out how to end this show. But until then, I've been Jake.
And I've been Logan. Until next time, remember, don't feed the plants.
Don't feed the plants.
Right? Don't feed the plants. Get a cactus. They're hard to kill.
What if Audrey 2 was a cactus?
I'm imagining now. Nope. Now in my head, Audrey's a Pokemon.
Oh.